नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवतसेवया भगवति उत्तमो श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 13, Description of the Descendants of Dhruv Maharaj. Text number 11 onwards. So yesterday we were studying about the son of Dhruv Maharaj named Utkal and how he was self-realized and he didn't take up the kingdom of his father and he would roam around like a madman, just like Jad Bharat. Text 11. Matva tam jadam unmattam kulvriddha samantrina vatsaram bhupatim chakrur vayiyansam bhrameh sutam. For this reason, the ministers and all the elderly members of the family thought Utkal to be without intelligence and in fact mad. Thus his younger brother named Vatsar, the son of Brahmi, was elevated to the royal throne and he became king of the world. It appears that although there was monarchy, it was not at all an autocracy. There were senior family members and ministers who could make changes and elect the proper person to the throne, although the throne could be occupied only by the royal family. In modern days also, wherever there is monarchy, sometimes the ministers and elderly members of family select one member from the royal family to occupy the throne in preference to another. So it wasn't just like that, because somebody is the eldest son in the family, he has to occupy the throne. No, it wasn't like that. He had to be fit to rule. He has to be eligible. Just like Maharaj Uttanpad, before he went to the forest, he saw Dhruv Maharaj was completely fit to rule the kingdom. So then Dhruv Maharaj was installed on the throne. स्वरवीर्थिवत्सरस्येष्टा भार्या सूतषडात्मजान् पुष्पार्णं तिग्मकेतुं च ईशमूर्जं वसुं जयम्. King Vatsar had a very dear wife whose name was Swarvithi, and she gave birth to 6 sons named Pushparna, Tigmaketu, Isha, Urja, Vasu, and Jaya. Vatsara's wife is mentioned here as Ishta, which means worshipable. In other words, it appears that Vatsara's wife had all good qualities. For example, she was always very faithful and obedient and affectionate to her husband. She had all good qualities for managing household affairs. If both the husband and wife are endowed with good qualities and live peacefully, then nice children take birth, and thus the whole family is happy and prosperous. So it's a big if, huh? These days just doesn't look like it happens. पुष्पार्णस्य प्रभाभार्या दोषा च द्वे बहुवतुः प्रातर्मध्यन्दिनं सायम् इति हि आसन् प्रभासुता. Pushparna had 2 wives named Prabha and Dosha. Prabha had 3 sons named Pratar, Madhyandinam, and Sayam. Pradosho Nishito Vyushta iti Dosha Sutastryaha Vyushta Sutam Pushkaranyam Sarvateja Samadadhe. Dosha had 3 sons, Pradosh, Nishita, and Vyushta. Vyushta's wife was Pushkarani and she gave birth to a very powerful son named Sarvateja. Sachakshu Sutam Akutyam Patanyam Manumavapaha Manora Sutamahishi Virajan Vavilasutam Puram Kutsam Tritam Dyumnam Satyavantam Ritam Vratam Agnishtom Mam Ati Ratram Pradyumnam Shivim Ulvakam. Sarvateja's wife, Akuti. Now, this is different Akuti, not the Swayambhuva Manu's daughter Akuti. gave birth to a son named Chakshusha, who became the sixth Manu at the end of Manu millennium. So this is all in the dynasty of Dhruv Maharaj. So in his dynasty will be born son named Chakshusha, who became the sixth Manu. Nadavala, the wife of Chakshusha Manu, gave birth to the following faultless sons: Puru, Kutsa, Trita, Dimna, Satyavan, Vritta, Agnishtoma, Atiratra, Pradyumna, Shivi, and Ulmuk. Ulmuko ajanayat putran pushkarnyam shadutva uttaman angam su manasam khyatim kritum angirasam gayam. Of the 12 sons, Ulmuk begot 6 sons and his wife Pushkarini. They were all very good sons, and their names were Anga, Sumana, Khyati, Kritu, Angira, and Gaya. Sunithangasya ya patni sushuve venam ulbanam yadhoshiliyat sarajarshir nirvinno nirgat purat. The wife of Anga, Sunita, gave birth to a son named Vena, who was very crooked. The saintly king Anga was very disappointed with Vena's bad character, and he left home and kingdom and went out to the forest. So Anga was a son of Ulmuk and wife Pushkarani. So going back, we can see who was the father of Ulmuk. Ulmuk's father was Sarvateja and Akuti. No, they gave birth to Chakshusha, and Chakshusha and his wife Nadvala gave birth to Ulmuk. So it's all story of one family only going on. Text 1920. Yamanga kshepu kupita vagvajra manihakil gata sostasya bhuyaste mamanthur dakshinam karam arajake tadaloke dasyubhi piditah praja jato narayana shena prithurahadya kshitishvaraha. My dear Vidura, when great sages curse, their words were as invincible as a thunderbolt. Thus, when they cursed King Vena out of anger, he died. After his death, since there was no king, all the rogues and thieves flourished. The kingdom became unregulated, and all the citizens suffered greatly. On seeing this, the great sages took the right hand of Vena as a churning rod, and as a result of their churning, Lord Vishnu, in his partial representation, made his advent as King Prithu, the original emperor of the world. Monarchy is better than democracy because if the monarchy is very strong and regulative principles within the kingdom are upheld very nicely. Even 100 years ago in the state of Kashmir in India, the king was so strong that if a thief was arrested in his kingdom and brought before him, the king would immediately chop off the hands of the thief. So 100 years ago, I think Prabhupada wrote commentary on this one in 1970. So in 1870 or so. As a result of this severe punishment, there were practically no theft cases within the kingdom. Even if someone left something on the street, no one would touch it. The rule was that the things could be taken away only by the proprietor and that no one else would touch them. In the so-called democracy, wherever there is a theft case, the police come and take note of the case, but generally the thief is never caught, nor is any punishment offered to him. As a result of incapable government, at the present moment, thieves, rogues, and cheaters are very prominent all over the world. So strong king and strong administration is very much required, actually. It's for the protection of the praja, of the population in general. That's the duty of the king. So this king Vena, although he comes in this great family from Dhruv Maharaj, but he was very cruel king, and we'll read about him. His father Anga was a very saintly person, but somehow King Vena was very cruel. This boy Vena was very, very cruel. So it was so cruel that the great sages they cursed him and killed him by the words only, by mantras only. Now Vidurji will ask question about this boy, Vena. तस्य शीलनिधे साधुर ब्रह्मण्यस्य महात्मना या राज्ञः कथं भूदृष्टा प्रजा यद्विमना ययो. Vidura inquired from the sage Maitreya, "My dear Brahman, King Anga was very gentle. He had high character and was a saintly personality and lover of Brahminical culture. How is it that such a great soul got a bad son like Vena, because of whom he became indifferent to his kingdom and left it?" So the story of Prachetas is still about to happen, but in between Vidurji asks another question about Vena. In family life, a man is supposed to live happily with father, mother, wife, and children. But sometimes, under certain conditions, a father, mother, children, or wife becomes an enemy. It is said by Chanakya Pandit that a father is an enemy when he is too much in debt. A mother is an enemy if she marries for a second time. A wife is an enemy when she is very beautiful. And a son is an enemy when he is a foolish rascal. So Chanakya Pandit's Niti is great. Huh? A wife is an enemy when she is very beautiful. In this way, when a family member becomes an enemy, it's very difficult to live in family life or remain a householder. Generally, such situations occur in the material world. Therefore, according to Vedic culture, one has to take leave of his family members just after his 50th year so that the balance of his life may be completely devoted in search of Krishna consciousness. So that's why this system, Vedic system, was very, very scientifically made, so that one fulfills all his duties, all his obligations, and then worry about Krishna consciousness towards the fag end of his life. And so after 50th year, he should be completely devoted. But those who don't follow, they will never follow even at the age of 90. Kim vaho ven uddishya brahma dandam ayuyujun dandavrat dhare ragye munyo dharma kovida. Vidura also inquired, how is it that the great sages who were completely conversant with religious principles desired to curse King Vena, who himself carried the rod of punishment, and thus awarded him the greatest punishment, Brahmashap. So by Brahmashap, they killed him. It is understood that the king is able to give punishment to everyone, but in this case it appears that the great sages punished him. The king must have done something very serious. Otherwise, how could the great sages, who were supposed to be the greatest and most tolerant, still punish him in spite of their elevated religious consciousness? It appears also that the king was not independent of the Brahminical culture. Above the king was the control of the Brahmins, and if needed, the Brahmins would dethrone the king or kill him. Not with any weapon, but with the mantra of a Brahma Shap. The Brahmins were so powerful that simply by their cursing, one would immediately die. Because this is the story of Satyuga. So Brahmins were very powerful, but Brahmins were also very tolerant. They had full control of their senses. So it's not like they would go around and cursing people and killing people. They watched King Vena, and when King Vena, they saw him so cruel, so unfit to be on the throne, to be the king. And also, it was Krishna's arrangement because Maharaj Prithu had to come, that it was time for him to appear. So the whole thing was arranged. So Brahmins were not just ordinary Brahmins. Not like today, at any moment, everybody gets angry and if they give sharp, curse somebody. So that's why nothing happens in this day and age by cursing of so-called Brahmins. नावध्येय प्रजापाल प्रजाभिरघवानपि यत्सो लोकपालानां बिभर्त्योजः स्वतेजसा. It's a duty of all citizens in a state never to insult the king, even though he sometimes appears to have done something very sinful. Because of his prowess, the king is always more influential than all other ruling chiefs. According to Vedic civilization, the king is supposed to be the representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is called Nar Narayan, indicating that Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, appears in human society as a king. It is etiquette that neither a Brahman nor a Kshatriya king is ever insulted by the citizens. Even though a king appears to be sinful, the citizens should not insult him. But in the case of Vena, it appears that he was cursed by Naradevatas. Naradevatas means the Brahmins. Therefore, it was concluded that his sinful activities were very grievous. So much so that king was considered as a representative of God. So king was Nridev, means because he was maintaining and protecting the population of his kingdom, just like the Supreme Lord maintains and protects his all creation. Of course, king does not maintain them just like the Lord himself does. The Lord does. King still, but he is considered as a representative. And also, king is considered one of the fathers. Just like king's wife or queen is considered one of the mothers, one of the 7 mothers. So king is also considered one of the fathers. So very important and very great position of being a king. So that is why Vidurji was a little apprehensive. Why did the Brahmins kill him? What did he do? Etadakhya hi me Brahman sunithatma cheshtitam Shaddhanaya bhaktaya tvam paravara vittamaha. Vidura requested Maitreya, my dear Brahman, you are well conversant with all subjects, both past and future. Therefore, I wish to hear from you all the activities of King Vena. I am your faithful devotee, so please explain this. Vidura accepted Maitreya as a spiritual master. A disciple always inquires from the spiritual master, and the spiritual master answers the question, provided the disciple is very gentle and devoted. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur said that by the mercy of the spiritual master, one is blessed with the mercy of the Supreme Lord. The spiritual master is not inclined to disclose all the secrets of transcendental science unless the disciple is very submissive and devoted. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, the process of receiving knowledge from the spiritual master entails submission, inquiry, and service. So tadviddhi pranipatena, Prabhupada is quoting that verse. Since Vidurji was asking the questions in a very humble way and he was really seeking, he wanted to know. It wasn't just like he was asking questions just for the sake of asking. And he was listening very, very attentively. So Maitreya Muni was very pleased and he was answering all the questions of Vidurji. Text 25. Maitreya Vacha Ango Ashwamedham Rajarshir Rajahar Mahakritam Na Jagmur Devatas Tasmin Ahuta Brahmavadibhi. Sri Maitreya replied, my dear Vidura, once the great king Anga arranged to perform the great sacrifice known as Ashwamedha. All the expert Brahmins present knew how to invite the demigods, but in spite of their efforts, no demigods participated. or appeared in that sacrifice. A Vedic sacrifice is not an ordinary performance. The demigods used to participate in such sacrifices, and the animals sacrificed in such performances were reincarnated with new life. In this age of Kali, there are no powerful Brahmins who can invite the demigods or give renewed life to animals. Formerly, the Brahmins, well conversant in Vedic mantras, could show the potency of the mantras. But in this age, because there are no such Brahmins, all such sacrifices are forbidden. The sacrifice in which horses were offered was called Ashwamedh. Sometimes cows were sacrificed, Gavalamba, not for eating purposes, but to give them new life in order to show the potency of the mantra. In this age, therefore, the only practical yajna is Sankirtan yajna, or chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra 24 hours a day. So, just like horse sacrifice, Ashwamedh yajna, there was Gavalamba, also cow sacrifice. So in that case, an old cow was sacrificed by the Brahmins, and by their mantras, by their so much of Brahm Tejas power was there, and by chanting the proper mantras, they would immediately, it wasn't like the cow, they would kill the cow and maybe later the soul will get another body. No, immediately the soul will either get the human body or a young cow's body. But once what happened in that sacrifice of cow sacrifice, Gavalabha, a sage, now I don't remember the name of the sage, he performed this yajna, this sacrifice. So he sacrificed a cow, and after the sacrifice, he had to go to the river, take a bath, come back and finish the sacrifice, so that the cow, the soul will take another body. So he killed the cow, did the sacrifice, went to the river to take bath. Meanwhile, his wife, somehow it's Krishna's arrangement, his wife developed the desire, she had the craving to eat the flesh of the cow. Although Brahmins and Brahmanis, they never used to eat meat. But somehow she developed the desire. So what she did, she was going to eat, but then she was afraid her husband is going to come back soon. So she cut up one of the hoofs of the cow, one of the lower parts, lower hoof. And she was about to hide it when she saw her husband coming. So she hid it in the ground. She dug up some hole and she hid it in the ground. So the Brahman came back. He didn't notice one of the hooves of the cow was missing, and he performed the rest of the sacrifice, and he chanted his mantra, and immediately a new cow or a calf was born. But he noticed one of the hooves was missing. And then he was surprised. He said, "What happened here? Because my mantras were proper, otherwise the calf wouldn't have been born like this. But somehow he doesn't have one hoof." So he went back into meditation to see what happened. And then he saw his wife doing that, and he was very sorry his wife did. And then he went to the place where his wife had hid this cow's hoof in the ground. And because the sage had already chanted the mantras, immediately from the cow's hoof, now that ankle part, now the hoof is pretty much the bone, but the ankle part of cow, now there was flesh and there was blood. So from blood came out onions, and from the flesh came out garlic. So that is That's how onion and garlic are born. That is why, because they came from the cow's body, they have some medicinal powers. But since it came from the flesh and blood of cow, so eating onion and garlic is as good as eating cow's flesh. So that is why in Vaishnav culture we don't eat onion and garlic. And since they came from the flesh and blood, they are also considered to be in the mode of ignorance, although they came from cow's body. So anyway, little digression. Text 26. Tamochur vismitastatra yajmanam athartvijaha havishi huya manani nate grinanti devtaha. The priests engaged in sacrifice then informed King Anga, "O king, we are properly offering the clarified butter in the sacrifice, but despite all our efforts, the demigods do not accept it." So the Brahmins were very powerful, but still the demigods were not showing up. So the sacrifice wasn't complete if they don't show up and take their share of the offerings. Rajan haminsha dushtani shraddhyasaditani te chandas yayatayamani yojitani dhritvritah. O king, we know that the paraphernalia to perform the sacrifice is well collected by you with great faith and care, and is not polluted. Our chanting of the Vedic hymns is also not deficient in any way, for all the Brahmins and priests present here are expert and are executing the performances properly. It is the practice of the Brahmins conversant with the signs to pronounce a Vedic mantra in the right accent. The combination of the mantra and the Sanskrit words must be chanted with right pronunciation. Otherwise, it will not be successful. In this age, the Brahmins are neither well versed in the Sanskrit language, not very pure in practical life. But by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, one can attain the highest benefit of sacrificial performances. Even if the Hare Krishna mantra is not chanted properly, it still has so much potency that the chanter gains the effect. So when the Brahmins were performing the Vedic sacrifice, there would be one Brahman who would be sitting and watching all other Brahmins and making sure everybody is doing the job properly, chanting the mantra properly, and doing the mudras properly, and offering the whatever the samagri and yagya properly. So everything had to be completely proper. Otherwise, the sacrifice won't be successful. And not just not successful, it can have the opposite effect. We'll read about that in one sacrifice. That is what happened in Bhagavatam. So Prabhupada said, in Kali Yuga, because Kali Yuga, Krishna knew, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is so merciful. He knew we are so fools and rascals. We don't know Sanskrit language. We cannot chant the mantras properly. So just somehow or other chant Hare Krishna mantra. Whether we say Ram or Rama or Rama, whatever we say, it's okay. It's just like the backbenchers in the class. We are like that in Kali Yuga. So somehow teachers say, okay, just get them graduated, get them out of my class. So this is our situation, actually. So somehow or other, Prabhupada, by mercy of Prabhupada, will make it through. It's only by his mercy. Otherwise, we can't chant the mantra properly. Forget about pronunciation, forget about attentiveness, forget about devotion, forget about surrender. We don't have anything. It's only going to be mercy of Prabhupada who's going to take us back. It's just to get his mercy. We just have to continue doing it. Sincerely try to make advancement. That's all. Anyway, so we'll stop here. See anybody has any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, like you were about that onion and garlic. I heard another story like about during the Samudra Manthana uh, when Lord Krishna was distributing the Amrit, and one of the demon Rahu or Ketu was there in with the demigods, and he got a drop of the Amrit, and after that his head was blown off by Sudarshan. And when then some drops dropped off the ground, that was the cause of the onion and garlic. So that is another version I had heard.
That is also I've heard. So they could be in different kalpa, like in different days of Brahmaji, different stories can happen. Now also because of that Amrit, because onion and garlic were formed, so they have some medicinal quality. But because demon's head was there, demon's blood was
Right.
there, so they're considered tamasic.
Yes.
Actually, in this, because the cow sacrifice was mentioned, so I wanted to take that story.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other question or comment? Okay, so we'll stop here. You all have a wonderful and safe day. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Jai
Thank you,
Shri
Prabhu.
Prabhupada.
Prabhu Sama.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Jai Shri Prabhupada.